Professor, you and your colleagues from MIT were recently awarded by the American Marketing Association for some novel research on how consumers make trade-offs when considering alternative products. Can you tell us a little bit more about that research?
Absolutely, I'd be delighted. Well, my colleagues John Hauser, Jim Orlin, and Michael Yee from MIT and I have basically found a new way to analyze how people make the decision on what to buy. And in the past, people have been assuming, market researchers such as myself have been assuming that there's a complicated trade-off process that people are making. And the breakthrough that we've had is to realize that the vast majority of people don't have such a complicated rule. They actually simplify things very dramatically, and we found a way to find out how they're doing that simplification.
Marketing academics have studied the process that consumers undergo when making trade-offs. What's novel about the approach you've developed?
Well, in the past, fellow researchers have assumed that people assign scores to different features of a product and sort of add up those scores, and the highest scoring product is what people will buy. And to some extent, that's true. But what we found is that that process of these trade-offs only happens with the last few products, when you've narrowed down your choices to your favorite 2 or 3 things. And the key discovery we've made is that to get from, say, 50 or 100 products that you might be considering down to those few, you use simplifying rules. And it's really important to know what those kind of simplification, those simplifying rules are, because you could get eliminated as a marketer. Your product could get eliminated before it's ever even considered. We want to know, what process of elimination are these consumers using?
Okay. From the perspective of a researcher, why is it important to understand that process of elimination?
Well, from a research standpoint, this is something that has been very difficult to actually calculate because of the huge number of possible process of elimination rules that someone might use. If you think about a product with even 10 features, could be any of the 10 features that they use to eliminate the first bunch of products, and then any of the remaining 9, and so on and so forth. And that's a huge number. And previous attempts at computing the exact rule that someone is using haven't quite failed, but they took literally days on a Unix computer. We've now solved that in a matter of seconds. So we can figure out in great detail the simplifying rule that somebody's using. That's really the advance that we've got here.
Okay. You've mentioned why firms might be interested in understanding how consumers eliminate products. How might a firm be able to use the results of your research?
Well, imagine we were talking about something like a smartphone, and the firm discovered that the vast majority of its users first decide whether they're going to pick one smartphone or some other cell phone based on whether it flips closed or not. Right? They have the brick-type phones and the flip phones. Well, if you knew that people wanted flip phones, let's say, and they're not even considering the brick-style phones, you better meet that requirement, or else you're not even going to get seriously considered. Now, of course, once you have a product that's in the final consideration set for a customer, then you have to win on other features. But it's identifying those key elimination features that we're helping companies with.
Okay. Back to the researcher's perspective,
yes.
What's important about understanding how to better ask consumers questions, or more efficiently ask consumers questions?
One of the big problems in market research, and this applies both for companies and for researchers in academia, is that it's hard to get people to fill out these studies because they're difficult. People have to think a lot, and they take a long time because of the number of questions that you have to ask. What we have found is that in going after this process of elimination, we can dramatically reduce the number of questions that a respondent has to answer. Some of our respondents in the study that we did that won this award actually answered literally 1 or 2 questions in under a minute, and we were done. We knew what we needed to know. So it's sort of a practical thing. We've recovered extra minutes during the survey process, and we've reduced the burden on these respondents, and thereby get reasonably accurate answers without as much effort.
Okay. Thanks for joining us today, Professor.
My pleasure.